Hey all, and welcome back to Fuzzy Dutchy Gaming and the second build where we start from one Exalt. This time we're going to do things slightly differently. So in this time around, I'm going to start with a level 75 character in white maps to make things a bit more realistic rather than starting, with a character that's level 90 plus. Now, most of the gems I've got have been leveled myself with the exception of 2 purchases that I'll come on to later. So this time again, I'm going with Deadeye because I'm just loving the Ascendancy at the moment. I'm going to give Cobra Lash a go. The way I'm looking to build it is just to go LE damage, making use of claws, the life gain on hit, Nightblade crit multi being super OP, and getting massive shocks with critical strikes. So there's nothing special on this build at all in regards to the gear. It's got a unique 6-link chest that costs 10C and it uses a 1C unique claw. Now the claw is not a decent claw for the build, but a half decent rare claw is still quite a lot of money at the moment when you're trying to put together like a really budget build. Everything else is really just gear you'd find on the ground identified. The gear in total cost 130C, and that's including buying a Divergent Cobra Lash. So the idea of the build is to build around Divergent Cobra Lash because this gives you increased damage for each remaining chain. And with the build at the moment, you get 5 chains from the gem, you get 3 from the Helm enchant, you get 2 from the Ascendancy, and with the Rubbish Claw that we run, you also get an extra chain when you're at maximum frenzy charges. So that gives a total of 11 chains, which means on bosses where it won't chain at all and they're the first person, then you're getting a lot of extra damage for all the remaining chains. It's also obviously really, really fun to map with when you've got a potential of 11 chains in big packs. And in all honesty, I didn't expect the build in its current form to really do very much at all even. I thought it might struggle in mid-tier yellow maps and definitely on bosses. But thanks to a few masteries that we're taking advantage of, and obviously Nightblade being super OP, I have done a few out beyond tier 11 maps. And the bosses, although not super quick, have gone down without too much trouble. And it's nowhere near as bad as I expected. I've not yet started throwing Sentinels around because I want to get at least a few more levels before I start really pushing the build. But I think with all the chains that we get if we decided to farm Sentinels in mid-tier, like yellow maps, I think it would be fine. I think in red maps, it would probably struggle a little bit. So what I'll do first is just go over the gear, then we'll look at the tree, and then I'm just going to go through a few interactions about how the build gets its damage. So let's firstly start with the weapon and why I've picked it. And in all honesty, I picked it because I read the description wrong. So we're using Touch of Anguish, which gives fizz damage, which we don't really take much advantage of. Gives increased cold damage, decent increased critical strike chance. Gives us frenzy chance on killing a frozen enemy, which doesn't matter for me because I'm running minimum frenzy charges. The reason I bought this is because I thought it said skills chain an additional time while at max frenzy charges. What I thought that meant was that for each frenzy charge you get an additional chain. So essentially this claw gives you +1 chain and not a lot else. The main reason I went for it is because to get within budget, even mediocre claws at this stage of the league, it might be because there's not many people selling and more people buying, are really expensive. Like, if anything, they're more expensive than they were at the beginning of the league. It's quite insane. Like, you look for a claw that's fairly bog standard and it's 1 to 2x for something that I'm pretty sure I can craft myself much, much cheaper. So that might be the option later on down the line. So I don't know yet what I'm doing in terms of progressing the character much further. But looking at POB, just adding in a half decent claw with all the current gear I've got and just getting a few more levels should get around 1.5 million boss TPS when we get our gems quality. So I'll just go over the gear and then the skill tree. And then, as I say, we'll talk about things that make the build work and make it sort of tick. So I'm having tons of fun playing with this character as it is such a nice skill to map with. It's just a shame that it'll probably not be something that will work this way next league, as I can't see any way that Nightblade interactions don't get nerfed really, really heavily, because it is probably a little bit overpowered. You can make most skills work that can take advantage of Nightblade. So as I said, the gear in total costs 130C. No item costs more than 20 chaos. So we'll go over the gear. So I mentioned Touch of Anguish. That was 1 chaos. I needed Cobra Lash change 3 times on an evasion base. This was 5 chaos. And then I used Essences of Dread to roll the helmet. So I just rolled a couple because I didn't want to spend too much money. Hit something with fire resistance and an open prefix to cast of invasion. And that's kind of it. Nothing special, but that will do. The amulet I purchased for 10C, and then I crafted minimum frenzy charges and then anointed divine judgment. So in total, the cost of the amulet was 23 chaos. The shield was 20 chaos. I just wanted something with spell suppression and life, and that was really all I wanted. This one was for 10C. It is corrupted, but it doesn't matter to me. I don't need to do anything with the shield or just run it as it is. It's also got a decent chunk of evasion at 1000. The rings in total were dirt cheap. I think one was 3 chaos and one was 5 chaos. So I think this ring was 3 chaos, and then I've obviously spent a divine to craft minimum frenzies. This one was 5 chaos and it already had minimum frenzy on it, so I just crafted life. The reason I've gone for 3 minimum frenzies is just so we've firstly always got that extra additional chain. Frenzy charges give, nice boost to attack and movement speed. The main reason is in this league, I don't like running Blood Rage because degens are what kill you, like ground effects and stuff. Having Blood Rage degens you. You don't really notice it that much until you hit damage over time. And then that, along with the fact that you're already degen in life, just feels really bad. So I tend not to use Blood Rage much this league. The chest, I've gone for a 6-link Ice Tomb for 10 chaos. There's a few reasons for it. One, I needed a cheap 6-link. Secondly, you can't be chilled, which is awesome. And then also it comes with a decent chunk of strength and intelligence, which, as we all know, for right-sided builds, they can be a bit difficult if you're wanting to run blue gems such as, added lightning, that's 114 int. There's not really much int that I pick up on the tree, so this just helps massively with the attribute side of things. Other than that, there's not that much going for it. It's just a chest that I always fall back to on budget builds if I need a really, really cheap 6-link. The gloves cost me 10C. I actually made a mistake when I bought these because I wanted to craft spell suppression because I'm about 7% short on spell suppression. When I'm full life, I'm capped, but when I'm not, I'm slightly below 100%. I misread the gloves and thought it had an open suffix. It didn't, so I've just crafted lightning damage to attacks. So the belt again was 10 chaos. I just wanted a heavy belt to help with strength, life, resistances, and an open prefix to craft LE damage with attacks. The boots I've gone for Zeri Step just because it's decent spell suppression, life, and movement speed. I got a fairly decent roll, so these were 15 chaos, I believe. And then that's it for the gear. As I say, there is nothing really special. It's a super, super common uniques that we're using. It's just the fact that one's 6-linked. All the other gear is stuff that if you were in SSF, you would have probably found gear equally as good. And then the flasks, I rolled these for a different character that I was playing, and they cost about 10C to roll the flasks. I thought I might as well just transfer the flasks over rather than having to go through the hassle of doing it again. Really, I'm just rolling until I hit evasion, attack speed, crit, and armor. Doesn't matter what one they're on, I just need to roll one of them on each flask, which is fairly easy. Then the only other thing we're using in terms of gear is one jewel, which I'm using a replica Conqueror's efficiency. These are dirt cheap. These are just a few chaos, just to make the mana cost of the skill a little bit better. So now it's 7 mana cost, so I don't really have to worry about running out of mana. I probably could get away with not using it, but it would feel quite bad if I miss a couple of attacks and let's say it uses 20 odd mana, then I'm going to be struggling a little bit. So this is probably overkill, but it just makes it feel much more comfortable. And then that's it for the gear. So I'll just quickly go over the gem links. So in the claw, we've got whirling blades, a flame dash because we are going to use wither and step on left click, and we need some way to get rid of those stupid grasping vines and to get over gaps and ledges and stuff. And then whirling blades is linked to faster attacks. The flame dash is as well, but it doesn't matter. It just adds a tiny bit to mana cost, and we use it very rarely. So in the helmet, I've got mark on hit, sniper's mark, and life tap. The reason I've life tapped this up is because the cost is 55 mana if I don't, and I've only got 97. It should be okay, but it's not going to hurt for that to cast from life. Yes, it's 100 and something life to use it, 192, but we get loads of life gain on hit from the claw, so you don't even notice the mark activating in terms of the life going down. In the shield, I've just got an anger aura. I've got steel skin, but I'm not using it because I need to use wither and step on left click, and I don't want to use many buttons, so we don't have any guard skills at the moment. I've got a grace, precision, and this is a Withering Step on left click. So in the boots, just got a Ancestral Protector and then Defiance Banner. I could run a guard skill, but there's really not anything that's going to make much of a difference because we don't have endurance charges, so Mortal Coil's not going to do very much. We don't have any armor, so Molten Shell's not going to do anything. Steel Skin is probably the best, but it doesn't do that much, and I can't be bothered to activate it manually because we're using Withering Step on left click. So I'll just go over the 6 link, which is Divergent Cobra Lash, Nightblade support, Trinity, added lightning damage, crit strike support, and then inspiration support. So the reason for Divergent Cobra Lash is the additional quality. So projectiles deal 15% increased damage with hits and ailments for each remaining chain. Let's say we have 11 chains, so that's a lot of increased damage that we get from the gem. The only other interaction in terms of gems to look at, in case you're not familiar with elusive builds, is Withering Step essentially resets our elusive buff. So the elusive buff we get from Nightblade is huge, and one for Withering Step is not. But what it does is it cancels the Nightblade one, so that then when you attack again, you get your full Nightblade elusive. So I'll quickly go over the tree. Now, this is not a tree that you would use on a build with really optimized gear. There's lots of nodes like these ones here and these ones up here you would not take if you had decent gear. Because I don't have decent gear and I need help with attack speed and crit chance, the tree's slightly different to what would be like if you had an endgame version. It would be different to this because these nodes are pretty suboptimal. But all I'll pull out is the masteries. So you have your spell suppression, increased crit chance based on suppression, and my suppression when I'm at full life is 100, when I'm not it's 93. So that's 93% crit chance, which is massive. And then there's 4 more masteries to pull out, which make a massive difference to damage. So it's skill supported by Nightblade have 40% increased effect of elusive. And then elusive grants 50% crit multi for skill supported by Nightblade. And that scales with your increased like elusive and that kind of thing. So you end up with something around 700% crit multi even on a budget build. And then the other 2 things to pull out, which are really important in terms of single target damage, are increased effect of non-damaging ailments from crits, and then increased effect of non-damaging ailments. So 40 there and then 50 on here gives us 90% increased effect of ailments. And that's the reason we're using, which some people might say, oh, why are you using added lightning? That's a bit suboptimal. The reason I'm using it is because this provides shock because it's lightning damage. And on bosses at the moment, I'm getting between 45 to 50% shock on bosses, which is an absolutely massive boost to single target DPS. That's also the reason I'm running increased critical strikes, where you'd normally run something like maybe early damage with attacks. Because my gear is pretty bad and I'm still a fairly low level, my crit chance is not close to 100%. Adding this gem in puts it to 100%, and it's a much bigger DPS increase than any other gem at this stage of the build. Later on, once I get more crit, this will get dropped for something else. But at the moment, it's definitely the biggest damage increase in terms of that last support gem. So the idea for the build at the moment is just to farm some lower tier red maps to get to level 86 plus. And then I'm going to see probably how far the build can go on this basic gear. Like, yes, I could earn currency to upgrade the build, but what I want to see is on this pretty trash gear, including the 1C claw, how far is the build going to get before it really gets to a place where it's like, no, this content feels bad. I'm dying. The bosses take too long. And that's the point where I'll look at the build and say, okay, let's make some improvement. But I really want to spend as little money as possible on the build because I want it to stay budget. Regarding how the build feels, so far it's surpassed my expectations. It was sort of just a random thing I threw together when I actually was going to build a Spectral Throw character on a budget. And then when I looked at throwing a few different skills into POB, Cobra Lash looked really good for DPS. And it's a bit easier to clear because Spectral Throw obviously just goes in a straight line and comes back to you. With Cobra Lash and all these chains, you can go near a pack, throw a few Cobra Lash out, and then they'll chain onto other enemies that Spectral Throw on a budget would not get anywhere near hitting. Now, I am still running fairly low content, but I still haven't died, which is nice considering I don't really have any armor. But with half decent evasion and elusive, and the fact that most enemies don't get near me before dying, it feels pretty safe. Now, this is obviously going to change once we get to higher tier content and bosses start taking longer to kill, you know, some of the arch nemesis mobs take longer to kill, then it's probably going to feel slightly more awkward. But at the moment, it feels really, really comfortable. As I mentioned, the tree will likely change when I get better gear, as a lot of the nodes are pretty suboptimal. But I do think for the bad gear that I've got, it's the best tree for where my character is at the moment. So just for fun, before I log off on this episode, let's just run a T14 out map with alters to see how we get on. Now, I haven't got the super damage alter nodes because that will just kill me straight away. I don't think the character's going to be able to do this. I just want to set it as a benchmark to see what I need to do to improve. So I've rolled a beach map here. It's nothing particularly taxing. It's more magic monsters, gain endurance charge, maim on hit. Cultists of Kitava's not great because it'll have those stupid massive winged demons that absolutely kill you with slams. But we'll just stick it in and we'll see how it goes. So I will stick my watchstones in anyway, just so I can at least get maps to drop. Now the boss is going to take forever if he's even killable. But I've just leveled up, so it doesn't matter if I die. So let's go in and let's have a look. Nope, not that one. This one. We'll stick Exile on it. I've already got the Burning Ground Pantheon, so at least I won't die to that. Right, just turn the volume down a bit in game so I can talk over the top.
Beauty will grow from your remains.
As you can see, my computer doesn't perform very well with these altars. These things I absolutely hate. Okay, not as bad as I thought. With Sentinel up, I have a feeling it would be an absolute shit show. But we'll worry about that in another episode. I'm not going to touch essence monsters either because they will absolutely destroy me because I'm not immune to elite ailments.
I'm not up to that just yet.
There's some big packs of monsters here. Alright, here's the test. How many years is it going to take to kill it all? I think we're going to die on a boss, to be honest, but... Well, I'm not going to give the map boss loads of extra res. That seems like a silly idea. Don't even have a portal, so if we die, we die. Yeah, as you can see, single target is rubbish. But I expected it. I've got like a 1C claw. You can't expect to kill bosses. But we got him down. So that will do for that. So overall, much better than I thought, considering there's no investment in the build whatsoever and it's level 80. Obviously, Beach is quite an easy boss and the map in general is fairly straightforward. But on that budget, I'm really happy with that. So that'll do for this episode. As always, thanks for watching and see you next time.